Hello, BookTube. I've got a mail haul for you today, something that could theoretically be our last mail haul of the year. A bunch of packages, a box, but we'll start off with periodicals. One of the periodicals that I got in the mail I just haven't managed to cancel is this, Condé Nast Traveler. Uh, and the cover article is Everybody Needs an Escape. This is a travel magazine. And one of the innumerable permutations of this pandemic in our lives and the lives of responsible people is that travel magazines instantly became in 2020 uh, either artifacts of an earlier world or signatures of personal irresponsibility. Who travels? Who goes on recreational travel when the whole world is being convulsed by a pandemic? When anywhere you go, you could be transmitting it, you could be contracting it, and you could be forcing people to get it by forcing them to work in the travel industry, which is going to die as a result. But and I feel for the travel industry, but nevertheless, who travels? And this is bad enough. I mean, I read through this issue because it's got gorgeous photography. Look at that. Look at just how lovely that is. Although that is just as populated as such resorts should be. There shouldn't be any people in these places. They should be empty. But you'd be surprised if you don't indulge in these things. They're $10 for a year subscription, so I got one. But you'd be surprised at some of the quality of writing that you can get in some of these things. So I read through this, but I read through it with kind of a weird retro air, except for the ad that came with it. An ad book came with it. It was on one of those adhesive strips inside the magazine, so I have to tear it apart to get it out or to look at it. But I am astonished at this ad, just astonished. This is a booklet for the new year of Viking cruises, ocean cruises, river cruises. This is a production, a high quality color brochure for Viking cruises that was attached inside Condé Nast Traveler. Now, on the one hand, I understand that because Condé Nast Traveler is talking pretty exclusively, not in my case, but pretty exclusively to your target demographic. But on the other hand, I don't understand it at all. Serving up a travel magazine full of exotic destinations that we can dream about going to someday, or remember, in my case, remember going to in the distant past, is one thing. And employing freelance writers to write about those places, that's all one thing. Putting out a brochure designed to entice people into going on a cruise in the middle of a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic, is unbelievable. It crosses the border from wishful thinking to outright irresponsibility. What is Viking Cruise Line thinking? I mean, I know on one level, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking we have thousands of people who work for us and we're going to go under if people just decide that cruising is ground zero for coronavirus. And yet, how many people, especially in America, only first became aware of something called coronavirus, something called COVID-19, because of a cruise ship? At the beginning of this year, a cruise ship was a plague ship. It was docked in a harbor, but Donald Trump didn't want to let the sick people who were puking their eyeballs up onto land because then they would be counted in America's stats, and he liked the stats right where they were. And that caused understandable outrage from people in 2020, getting some of the clearest indications. They've become daily occurrences now, but that was one of the clearest indications to just the ordinary person on the street that Donald Trump isn't just Queens unpolished, that he is actually a psychopath, that he actually doesn't care whether other people live or die. That was the first real sign of that most people in this country got. And like I said, they've got it ever since then. The ones who could turn a blind eye to children in concentration camps sleeping on concrete, and the women who came with them, whether they were the children's mother or not, being forcibly sterilized. The ones who could turn their eyes away from that and say, well, border security, et cetera, they couldn't really rationalize the cruise ship thing. Because that wasn't, of course, Donald Trump and those people didn't pay a single bit of attention to the crew of hundreds on a cruise ship who aren't American and who aren't white and who are in more danger than anybody. No, but instead, most Americans saw that and thought, okay, that's depraved. You're keeping them trapped on a cruise ship because you don't want to increase your plague numbers? What about their well-being? They're our kind of people. Uh, and that's the way that most Americans, a great number of Americans, learned about COVID-19 in the first place, was from a cruise ship. Now here we are less than a year later, and I've got a new brochure that I had to tear apart. I had to tear it apart to get it out of the magazine. A new brochure for, sign up for a Viking cruise. Who would do that? Who would take a Viking cruise in 2021? Would you? There aren't enough safety precautions in the world. People get all sorts of infections on cruises as it is. I had to research this extensively. I wrote a NaNoWriMo project about a woman who takes a year-long cruise around the world. Those are actually rarer than you think. And I did a deep dive of online research, and intestinal viruses came up more often than pretty destinations. It was a number one thing that most people talked about is you're on this enclosed environment, the food is not well taken care of, and you're eating it at a trough, cheek by jowl with 1,000 other people. So if one person gets sick, you're all going to get sick. And that was just a food virus. That was just food poisoning. Imagine. Anyway, it wasn't all outrage because it was also my Bible, the TLS, the Times Literary Supplement. I looked through the Times Literary Supplement. This is probably the last one I'll get this year. I looked through it naturally to see echoes. When you're a book reviewer, a professional book reviewer, you look through to see echoes. You look at a big journal like this to see who's reviewed books that you've also reviewed, or that you're going to be reviewing. And I found a few of those echoes, but those weren't the highlight of this issue. I'll mention a couple of those echoes. Like for instance, here Jeffrey Wheatcroft reviews Larry Tye's book Demagogue about the life of Joe McCarthy. And it's a nice long review, very nice, and it's very well done. I liked it a lot, although it is blind to the thing. One of the things that is going to infuriate me in 2021 is the kind of putting Trump in perspective, tossed off lines that want to say he wasn't that bad. This is a person who is right now, as we speak, trying hard, planning, actively strategizing to conduct a military takeover of the United States of America and install himself as an unelected dictator. That is not hyperbole. That is not some poetic twist on what he's doing. That is the actual flat fact of what he's doing, and he's doing it right now. So it's going to cause a few gray hairs to pop out on my head when I start watching writer after writer say, well, at least he made the trains run on time. Well, he wasn't all that bad. And this piece indulges in a little of that, but it was really good. And of course, I looked at it with envy because when I reviewed Demagogue, I had 800 words max, and this is a good 1,600 words, and I could have used that room. Then Stephen Lovell reviews 2 new books on Joseph Stalin. One of which, by Ronald Grigor Suni, I also reviewed, and he has even more space, just 3 pages of space. He devotes almost none of that space to Suni's book. Suni's book is 1,000 pages long. It was challenging and interesting, and he devotes hardly any time to it. He pays a lot more attention to just telling you about Stalin. Then Tara McAvoy does I think we saw the little book. There was a little book, R.F. Foster did a book on Seamus Heaney, on his life and his poetry, and rightly summarizes the book as just basically Heaney 101. So it's not really a place where the author chooses to do a whole lot of insightful meta-analysis or anything like that. But the highlight of the issue was this. It's a review of The Self-Help Compulsion by Beth Bloom and Reading for Life by Philip Davis, 2 books that look at the self-help industry. And the review is by Joanna Scutts. Always a pleasure to see Joanna Scutts' work. Has been since her very early days on Open Letters Monthly, when it was a joy to get her pieces and a joy to publish them, a privilege. And she writes about the self-help group with her typical insight and eloquence. I want to read you just a bit of it because it's always a pleasure to read Jo's prose. To literary critics, self-help's habit of mining literature for life lessons was fundamentally antithetical to its status as art. Serious readers were not supposed to pattern their moral lives after Jane Eyre any more than they would look to the braided crown of Titian's Venus of Urbino for hairstyle inspiration. This highbrow hostility towards self-help, Bloom suggests, he's the author of one of the books we mentioned, was entwined with the rise of literary studies as an academic discipline in the early 20th century, with its privileges of with its privileging puzzlement over pleasure. Couldn't have summarized Lit Crit any better than that. It's privileging of puzzlement over pleasure. Yet Bloom shows that even modernists have become implicated in the self-help genre. Beckett's fail better motto was a favorite Silicon Valley mantra, while Alain de Botton's How Proust Can Change Your Life has become a blueprint for a surprising boomlet of books that read difficult modernist works through a self-help tinted lens. It's the difficulty itself and the absence of didacticism that paradoxically draws these readers and writers to pursue the moral core of Virginia Woolf and James Joyce. Rather than sneer at this approach as dumbing down, Bloom finds it audacious and illuminating, opening up broad questions about how and why we study literature. Contemporary literature, she shows, is also productively engaged with the culture of advice, how-tos, and guides to success. There are, of course, objections to self-help that are more substantial than snobbery. Many classics of the genre undeniably enthrall to a particularly ruthless, even narcissistic form of individualism. Smiles notwithstanding, this ethos seems fundamentally American. An inheritance that runs through Benjamin Franklin and Dale Carnegie, of whom Charles Manson was a fan, and Donald Trump's hero, Norman Vincent Peale, and serves up a gospel of self-reliance, positive thinking, and superficial friendliness, all the while blindly refusing to admit that success is a game comprehensively rigged in favor of white men. It's a nice, long piece, and it was the highlight of my TLS. And it did not ask me to go on a cruise. So that was the mail, that was the periodicals, but then we have a bunch of packages. So let's go through those, including a big box at the end that I suspect is from one of you. But most of these I don't think are. Most of these I think are from publishers. Like this first one is late February. This is Vibrate Higher by Talib Kweli. Vibrate Higher. Talib Kweli Green. Okay. Talib Kweli left a name off the title. The pub sheet says the author's name is Talib Kelly Green. Grew up in New York City in 1980s and 90s as part of the first generation of rappers to come of age with hip-hop as an already established cultural force. A purveyor of politically engaged rap, Kweli made his mark in the 90s and early 2000s with a string of now classic records. First as Black Star and Reflection Eternal, and then as a solo artist with 2002's Quality. Kweli has continued to hone his craft to this day, surprising fans and pushing boundaries with each new release. But he has also branched out into other fields as an outspoken activist, a host of the popular People's Party podcast, and now as a debut author. So this is his first book. Do any of you know this rapper? I don't, of course, have any idea who he is. Never heard a single bar of his music. I assume I can predict what it will be like, but maybe he's early enough in rap's history so that I can't. Certainly the stuff that I hear coming out of cars on the street here is identical. It's all identical. It's exactly the same. I have no musical talent. I just want to frighten you. I have no musical talent. I just want to frighten you. Maybe with a police siren thrown in the background. Not exactly Singing in the Rain. As the book begins, the author takes us back to the Brooklyn of his youth, painting a vivid picture of a precocious kid, the son of two educators, who fell hard for hip-hop. He reminisces about making cassette recordings of hours upon hours of music taped off his favorite radio stations, and recalls cutting class and trekking into Manhattan to hang out with other aspiring rappers at Washington Square Park. That could be fun to read. Okay, well, this doesn't come out until late February, and of course, I am not the ideal reader for this thing, and I'm especially not the ideal reviewer for it. So part of the game here would be to find a good reviewer for this. Find somebody, ideally, who knows this guy already, who knows his work already. And to whom this book will be a revelation. To me, it'll be largely coded. But it does sound interesting. The glimpse of an earlier booklet, of an earlier Brooklyn. I've known that Brooklyn, so that would be interesting. Okay, what do we have here? Pub sheet? No, we don't. All right, well, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. So this comes out in May, and this is by Jennifer Saint, and it is a novel called Ariadne. Probably another myth retelling. Let's see. Ariadne, princess of Crete, grows up greeting the dawn from her beautiful dancing floor and listening to her nursemaid stories of gods and heroes. But beneath her golden palace echo the ever-present hoofbeats of her brother, the Minotaur, a monster who demands blood sacrifice every year. When Theseus, prince of Athens, arrives to vanquish the beast, Ariadne sees his green eyes not a threat, but an escape. Defying the gods, betraying her family and country, and risking everything for love, Ariadne helps Theseus kill the Minotaur. But will Ariadne's decision ensure her happy ending? And what of Phaedra, the beloved little sister she leaves behind? Hypnotic, propulsive, and utterly transporting, Ariadne has slow down there, Seymour. I'll be the judge of that. Forges a new epic outside the traditional narratives of heroism and glory that leaves no room for women. Okay. This is Jennifer Saint's debut novel, and as the summary has already described, and as any knowledge of Greek mythology will tell you, the story of Theseus and the Minotaur does have room for women. The woman who's in it is Ariadne. so that's a little bit on the tricky side. Of course, we have The King Must Die, another great historical novel about Theseus and the Minotaur, but this sounds to me like it'll be a very different kettle of fish. And I'm always up for these kinds of things, as I absolutely love Greek mythology. Probably I don't want to start reaching for books every time something comes up, but I probably have Edith Hamilton's mythology within easy reach as well, and other books like it. So fantastic, another myth retelling, great. And then let's see, let's move on to this next one here. Keep an eye out for pub sheets. Okay. Okay, no pub sheet on this one, but that's all right. This is This is a finished copy of Michael Woolridge's Brief History of Artificial Intelligence. What it is, where we are, and where we are going. Which I've already read, but I'll gladly read it again. I don't have a date on this thing, but probably it's out already. Let's see here. The ultimate dream of artificial intelligence is to build machines that are like us, conscious and self-aware. That's oddly put, isn't it? Is that supposed to mean the ultimate dream of the human makers of artificial intelligence, or are we saying that's artificial intelligence's own ultimate dream? In this case, it might be the same in both. While this remains a remote possibility, no, it's not a remote possibility. It's already happening. While this remains a remote possibility, rapid progress on AI in this century is already profoundly changing our world. Yet the public debate and media hype is still largely centered on unlikely prospects ranging from sentient machines to dystopian robot takeovers. Oh, I'm not going to tell this author his business, but I didn't know this. I hadn't read this cover copy when I read the book. In this lively and clear-headed guide, Professor Michael Woolridge brings a healthy injection of humility to an overhyped field and changes the prevailing narrative on AI, revealing how these anxieties distract us from the more immediate risks that this transformative technology poses, from algorithmic bias to fake news. He also shows us how these anxieties overlook the true life-changing potential of the field he loves. And this will give me an idea of who he is. Okay, he's fairly young. He is a professor of computer science and the head of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Oxford. Good Lord. He's been at the heart of the AI community for more than a quarter of a century. And this book is terrific. Not anywhere near as dry as you might think. Very good as a primer on the whole subject. So that's fantastic. Glad to have a finished copy of that. Let's just forge on here. What have we got next here? Okay. All right. Didn't request this, but that's all right. This is due in mid-January. This is by the mystery author Patricia Cornwell, but this is not a mystery novel. This is a second science fiction novel. Book 2 of the Captain Chase series. This is Spin in a finished copy. Very nice. One of the world's most beloved authors, more than 120 million copies of her books in print, sold more than 100 countries. Award-winning series about Dr. Kay Scarpetta. Okay. In her new thriller, launched with Quantum. So Quantum was the first one. Cornwell introduced a dazzling new heroine for the 21st century, Captain Callie Chase, a NASA test pilot, quantum physicist, and cybercrime investigator. Chase was immediately embraced by readers and critics alike for her fearlessness, brilliant insights, and deep knowledge of cyber technology and space science, a tribute to the level of research the best-selling author dedicates to the books she writes. Except for the one about Jack the Ripper. Except for that one. Quantum finished with a shocking cliffhanger, leaving readers desperate to know what Captain Chase's next move would be. Oh no, I don't know that I read Quantum. And it ended on a cliffhanger. Oh no. Okay, well, let's see what we know here from this thing. In the aftermath of a NASA rocket launch gone terribly wrong, Captain Callie Chase comes face to face with her missing twin sister Carmi, as well as the startling realities of their shared destiny that was put in motion years ago. But the top secret program has spun out of control, and only Callie can redirect its course. Of course, that NASA rocket launch gone terribly wrong could be handled by Superman. Yes. If he were around, if you're in this book, you could handle it rather easily. Wonder Woman probably could too. And, a good baker's dozen of the Legion of Superheroes. But we'll take what we can get. All right, so fantastic. So this, my main worry now is that this is going to be, that I'm going to need to read Quantum first. Oh, look at that. Wow. I just noticed that. Look at the end papers. Very nice. I will read the beginning of this to see how well it does. I don't really care about cliffhangers or spoilers or revelations of any kind. I just don't want to be left in the dark. So I'll read the beginning of this book to see if maybe I feel like I'm in the dark, in which case I might need to request the first book. Then we'll forge ahead here. We've got another package. What have we got here? Another finished copy. Oh my. Oh goodness. Okay, Living History. Always fun to get to read a book, get a book that you lived through. So this comes out at the end of January. This is a January 2021 book. This is by Ray Takei, and it's called The Last Shah, America, Iran, and the Fall of the Pahlavi Dynasty. This book offers a new view of one of America's most important, infamously strained, and widely misunderstood relationships of the post-war era. It tells the history of America and Iran from the time the last Shah was placed on the throne in 1941 to the 1979 revolution that brought the present Islamist government to power. This revolution was not, as many believe, the popular overthrow of a powerful and ruthless puppet of the United States. Rather, it followed decades of corrosion of Iran's political establishment by an autocratic ruler who demanded fealty but lacked the personal strength to make hard decisions and ultimately lost the support of every sector of society. Esteemed Middle East scholar Ray Takei, I don't know if it's T-A-K-E-Y-H, or Taka maybe, provides new interpretations of many key events, including the 1953 coup against Prime Minister Mossadegh and the rise of Ayatollah Khomeini, significantly revising our understanding of America and Iran's complex and difficult history. Ooh, this sounds interesting. I have a slight, distant, but nevertheless real connection with the Shah, and have read quite a bit. Big biographies, little biographies, big studies, little studies, and this is the latest of them. So that'll be on the docket for 2021. Very interesting. And then we have a box, and it's priority mail box. So I don't think it's from a publisher. I think it's from one of you. Let's take a look. Of course, I am a nomad here at Hyde Cottage in search of adequate lighting, and that means that I'm often out of reach of my faithful scissors. That is true in this case. I'm out of reach of my scissors, so I'm going to have to just manhandle this, but that's all right. It's coming along. What have we got here? Oh yes, all right. It is from one of you. It is from one of you. There's a card and everything. I have a mantle in the other room. And as old-fashioned as it is, I am filling that mantle with cards from people, including a lot of you. Oh my, fantastic. Okay, so what have we got here? What have we got? Oh, all right, so we have dog treats, first of all, for the bean, and then Steve treats. We have double stuffed Oreos, which will go down the hatch today. Oh man! All right, well, you know who you are. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've got a very eager schnauzer looking at me right now because she knows that something's up. She knows this isn't a book. Fantastic. All right, well, there we go. That was our mail haul for today. So we have The Last Shop. Not the first book about Reza Pahlavi that had this title. As far as I can remember, I'm going to have to see. Of course, the famous one, the one that did well, was The Shah of Shahs. But there are others. I'll have to look around and see. I wish this thing were 5 times as long, but maybe I won't wish that. Maybe the author stinks. So then we have Spin by Patricia Cornwell, the sequel to Quantum. We have A Brief History of Artificial Intelligence by a long-standing expert. We have Ariadne, one of 2021's myth retellings, a popular subgenre of fiction. We have Vibrate Higher. Sounds like a combination autobiography and early history, first-hand history of rap music. And then the TLS and Condé Nast Traveler, including a guide to the Viking cruise of your dreams in the middle of a raging pandemic. And that's it. That is our mail for today. We will see. That might be the last mail haul of the year. You'll be the first to know if it's not. But I'm going to wrap this up before it gets to 35 or 40 minutes. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.